Stevie, what are you doing? What is this, bro? What the hell? The Detroit Red Wings have made a trade with divisional... No, not divisional. They're not divisional anymore. They were at a point. Former divisional rivals, the Chicago Blackhawks. Take a look at this. It's a 1-for-2 deal. The Red Wings have received Craig Smith and Petr Mrazek. The Chicago Blackhawks have received Joe Veleno. What? What in the world? Like, did anybody expect this? Oh, Stevie Y is in the market for a center, like Dylan Cousins or Elias Pettersson or whatever. Nah. He goes out there and gets Petr Mrazek. Like, bruh, what in the world? Here's a first look as to what Petr Mrazek might look like in a Detroit Red Wings jersey. I think we all needed to see that. But this is a very bizarre trade that I'm having a lot of trouble trying to piece together why they did this. I guess it makes sense when you think about the players involved, but let's dive into it here. So one of the reasons I like this trade for Chicago, first and foremost, is because with the addition of Spencer Knight from the Seth Jones trade, this team just didn't really need Petr Mrazek anymore. And in exchange, they are getting Joe Veleno, a young guy, 25 years old, 6'1", 205 left-handed center, making $2.275 million a year till the end of next season. I think a lot of Wings fans were super excited for Joe Veleno back when he was drafted in 2018. Part of this is because heading into the 2017-18 year, Joe Veleno was seen as a top 5 bona fide prospect. Why? It's because he had exceptional status in the QMJHL in 2015. So he was the first guy in the queue to grab that status alongside of other CHL phenoms like John Tavares, Connor McDavid, and Aaron Ekblad, and Sean Day, of all people. Yeah, that's an old conversation point. I don't think we had been talking about too much of the exceptional status stuff over the past few years. But believe me, it was a really big deal back in 2018. So Joe Veleno was supposed to be this top talented prospect who had so much to bring as some sort of a Jonathan Toews light two-way center with some good playmaking and passing ability. There were so many good qualities out of Veleno in that 2017-18 season. But as that year went on, he kind of slipped down the draft rankings. He didn't produce as much as maybe you would have expected. His total point production metrics saw him put up 79 points in 64 games played. And he went from a guy that some of us thought could have been a top 5, top 10 pick, all the way to 30th overall, where he was taken by the Detroit Red Wings. There's so much to like about Joe Veleno. He's a hard-nosed workhorse that makes the players around him better. The fleet-footed center is unselfish and will primarily look to make the plays at top speed. However, when the chance arises to put it in the pot himself, he will capitalize. He sees the ice well and is rarely caught out of position. His defensive game is refined and he actively pursues puck control. Transitioning to offense is natural, smooth, and quick. All in all, he's a well-rounded two-way forward that skates well and can be the catalyst a team needs to turn a game in its favor. If he can find the consistency in refusing to let himself get taken out of plays, especially if he doesn't start them, he will thrive and exceed expectations. The problem with this is that this scouting report is from 8 years ago. So Joe Veleno, as his time in Detroit and Grand Rapids continued, hey, he put up 28 points in 80 games last year, but this season he only had 10 in 56 games played. Veleno was given a chance on the first line with Raymond and Larkin. He didn't look all too great there. Marco Kasper has been much better in that position, and Veleno just kind of worked his way down the lineup because he wasn't really able to put it all together like this scouting report is suggesting he might have been able to do. This guy had first overall potential when he was an exceptional status player in 2015. A lot of us were kind of penciling him in as one of these top guys in the future drafts, but nah, he just wasn't that good. And so for Joe Veleno to go over to Chicago, a team where everybody else is young, he's going to be given a lot more opportunities to try and capitalize on his profile. I kind of see a similar sort of Kirby Dach-esque development path for Veleno in Chicago. Of course, though, Veleno's 25 years old, so it's not like he's got a lot more time to get better. But ultimately, the Blackhawks are trying to capitalize on the potential that Veleno has. Maybe some of the mentorship, the leadership as a CHL captain, a guy who was super highly touted to mentor Connor Bedard in a way. And the price that the Blackhawks are giving up, it's Craig Smith and Petr Mrazek. Now, we'll talk about Mrazek at the end of the video because he, of course, is the more juicy trade asset for Detroit. But Craig Smith is a 35-year-old 6'1", 203 center right wing, signed on to the end of this season making $1 million. He's really old, folks. And Smith, formerly of the Nashville Predators, Boston Bruins, Washington Capitals, Dallas Stars, and Chicago Blackhawks, had 16 points in 40 Chicago games this season. Craig Smith had a 50-point year in 2017-18. Can you imagine that? That's crazy. The guy's had a whole bunch of playoff experience, so you can say that he is being added for that. I mean, look at all the playoff games he had played with Boston and with Nashville. Nashville was in such a good run with their Roman Josi, PK Subban years in the late to mid-2010s. Craig Smith was a part of that, and he was producing some points, having some intangible qualities too. He's a good vet. He'll help out the Wings in their middle to bottom six. I don't think he's too significant. I do think, though, he could be seen as an upgrade over Joe Veleno if you're looking for very particular traits in terms of leadership, in terms of two-way play, in terms of being able to just do the right thing. Not that Joe Veleno was terrible in that respect. He was decent to passable, but Craig Smith, I think, could be seen as a much more versatile add, especially as a winger. But also, coming over to Detroit's way, it's Petr Mrazek. Yeah, guess what? Mrazek's back, folks. 33 years old, 6'2", 187, signed on to the end of next season, making $4.25 million a year. That's a pretty expensive deal for a guy who this season has an .890 save percentage. Now, I have streamed Mrazek on and off in fantasy hockey this year. I've had him a bunch, I've dropped him a bunch. When he's on, he's really good. But when he's not on, oh boy, things look really bad. And a lot of that is because he's on the Chicago freaking Blackhawks. I mean, look at the two games that Petr Mrazek had recently. 6.67 save percentage against Vegas, 7.62 against Columbus, and then a 9.39 against Nashville. This guy is inconsistent as all heck, but he plays in Chicago, so it's kind of okay. Now, there's a plane above my apartment, so you could probably hear that. I mean, a 6.67 save percentage is terrible, man. Absolutely terrible material there for Petr Mrazek. Hopefully he's able to string together a little bit more consistency since the Detroit D-core is probably a lot better than Chicago's, especially without Seth Jones. One would hope that this means that the Red Wings goaltending situation will solidify itself over the next little while, because we have seen some speculation as to whether or not a guy like Alex Lyon or somebody could get moved, whether or not somebody would not want to stick around longer term. You still got Sebastian Cossa cooking in the AHL, so hopefully you're able to see him do well. Ville Husso was sent over to Anaheim, so he's gone. I guess you needed a goaltender to replace him if you really wanted to do that. But Petr Mrazek, as a former Red Wings goaltender who was decent in some stretches. I mean, he had a 9.21 save percentage in 2015-16. That's fantastic. But towards the end there, he definitely didn't have much of a career with Detroit. He was sent over to Philadelphia and then over to Carolina and then Toronto and then Chicago, and he's just kind of been all over the place. So now he's back in Detroit, and I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this trade here. What do you think this spells for Alex Lyon and Cam Talbot? What do you think this does roster-wise, replacing Joe Veleno for Craig Smith? And if you're a Blackhawks fan, what are your thoughts on getting Joe Veleno, a younger guy who's got maybe a bit more potential than Craig Smith does longer term, but who still has had trouble himself trying to fully take that out into the NHL and beyond? So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this Detroit and Chicago trade. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.